to the world. Across the past year, I have been in front of dozens of audiences like this, and time and again I have asked people one simple question. I have asked people to raise their hand if they are excited about the future. Every single time, fewer than half a dozen people in a sea of hundreds put their hand up. This, my friends, is our problem. Trickle-down politicians and their donors have spent at least 40 years coming after our public services, our media and our democracy. But it is clear now more than ever that their real target has been our hope. The hope that better is possible. These guys want you, angry and exhausted and disillusioned. It means that you are disempowered. Too exhausted to think at the end of the workday, too angry to see the problem clearly, too disempowered to look around and see all of the other exhausted and angry people, and to understand that if we spent a moment to find our common problems and our common solutions, absolutely everything could change. So, conveniently, all across the world, after decades of privatising and underfunding the public services people need in order to live healthy lives and participate in society, after decades of creating the conditions of poverty and extreme vulnerability and isolation and mental ill health, after creating this exhaustion and anger and despair, well, the right wing knows that those feelings have got to go somewhere. So they have painted targets. Those painted targets are not the people who are actually responsible for causing this poverty, this homelessness, this unemployment, and this understandable, quite deep rage. No. The chosen targets are Indigenous peoples, fighting for survival after centuries of injustice and violent theft. Those chosen targets are our rainbow communities, who every day prove that all these social norms, well, they're just made up. The chosen targets are migrants, regular people just like you and me who want to provide for themselves, their whānau and their community. Let me be crystal clear. If you are struggling to get by, your beef is not with somebody else who is just struggling to get by. Your beef is with the system that forces almost everyone you know into a life of struggle. And, more precisely, your beef is with those who profit from that. It's Pride Month. We have seen some of the most aggressive and intentional targeting of our takatapui, rainbow and queer community in a really long time. Some of that has been driven by a self-declared apostle who lives in a mansion and drives nice cars, funded by huge tithing from people without much to spare. The followers of this self-declared apostle, though, well, they've been rejected from most of regular society time and again. Some of them have been scooped up into that flock after exiting prison, because after decades of successive governments giving up on real rehabilitation, there simply isn't anything or anywhere else to go. So people who have nothing else and nowhere else to belong are given refuge, and their internal pain is warped outwards. Instead of being channeled towards dismantling the rules that allow a handful of people to take an immense amount of wealth off the back of our collective work, that anger is so conveniently, for those profiteering from the status quo, channeled towards people just trying to live their own quite regular or quite fabulous lives. I believe these extreme microcosms of hatred can actually teach us a lot about where we're at as a society. More importantly, I think, when we peel back the distractions, it lays bare the solutions. We cannot give up on our fellow human beings. You do not get human rights because somebody deems that you are worthy or good. You get human rights because you are human. When we uphold each other's basic dignity, no matter what, we create the conditions for connection and for true justice. We all need somewhere to belong, and human history tells us that there is almost always a politician or self-appointed apostle willing to capitalize on and warp rejection and fear and anger for their own personal gain. Now that anger, well, it actually comes from a real place, of material deprivation, housing insecurity, food insecurity, income insecurity, straight up insecurity. The anger, that anger, can either destroy us as we fight each other, much to the entertainment of those laughing their way to the bank, or it can be turned into the solidarity necessary to change the rules of this game. Our country is considered one of the wealthiest in the world on a per-person basis. So why can't regular people afford to go to the dentist? Well, I'll tell you, it's not because of the gays, or the migrants, or tangata whenua. It's because that wealth is not shared fairly. It's because way back when the public health system was first being designed, the lobby was already so strong to privatise dentistry. Why can't regular people afford decent housing? Well, because over the decades, politicians and property speculators, sometimes one and the same, they've made intentional decisions to sell off your human rights to housing to the highest bidder. And why is the planet that all of this is happening on being allowed to burn while billionaires pile up ill-gotten treasure? Well, because almost everybody's focus, understandably, is on just trying to get by. It is hard to think about, let alone contend with, how a handful of people are ransacking the climate necessary for our collective survival in order to make a quick buck. You're just out here trying to survive. That is what we mean when we say that the same economic system that is exploiting people is also exploiting the planet. So what's a right-wing government's response to all of this exploitation and exhaustion? Well, obviously, it's more exploitation and exhaustion. It is punishing beneficiaries and tax cuts for the rich. It is fast-tracking offshore profits plundered from our natural environment. It's banging the growth drum while intentionally being silent on what kind of growth and for whom. Seriously. Just last week, when we were in Parliament, I asked the Prime Minister why, after decades of this growth that he is so fixated upon, 10% of the people in this country own 60% of the nation's wealth. It'll shock you to learn Christopher Luxon didn't answer the question. Instead, he went on and on about celebrating successful people. Now, that would maybe make sense if we were talking about people in isolation, which is what the right wing so desperately wants us to do. But we're not, and we can't, because, my friends, we live in a society. Poverty and all of the social ills that stem from it don't come from nowhere. It comes from a tolerance of extreme inequality. If you are totally sweet, with 311 households holding more wealth than the bottom 2.5 million New Zealanders, then you're totally sweet with the child deprivation, homelessness and poor health that comes with it. Inequality and poverty aren't just connected. Deep inequality creates poverty. Now, where would all of this pent-up anger go if it wasn't directed at other people just struggling to get by? If hustle culture didn't teach us to lap it all up in self-loathing? What if we realised our shared power in working together instead of fighting each other? If we ensured that the wealthy pay their fair share instead of swallowing trickle-down fairy tales? We don't live in a game of monopoly. We can and should change the rules when they do not work for the majority of people. In the last year alone, we have seen tens of thousands of people turn up in the streets to prove our country's values of care for each other and the planet that we live on, for titiriti o Waitangi. 2024 was the year of activism, and 2025 must be the year of organising, of channeling that energy into a shared goal to change this government, to uproot the trickle-down nightmare and to build an economy that supports life instead of exhausting it. In December, the Greens released Hiara Anamata, our emissions reduction plan. We showed how to reduce emissions 5 times faster than the government's proposal. We proved that you can not only reduce emissions and the cost of living, but also improve quality of life. Today, I am proud to announce that in May, The Greens will be releasing the budget that we would be rolling out if we were in government. Our budget will not be a defence of the status quo. Our budget will show how we already have everything that we need to ensure that everybody enjoys basic rights to a clean environment and to a stable climate. Everyone is housed, everyone gets healthcare, everyone gets education, everyone gets the genuine opportunity for a good life. That is because we believe in the public good. And we are frankly sick of this government's pathetic pandering to privatisation. 40 years ago, a few politicians made the decision to shred our social safety net. They began selling off the things that we used to all own and look after together. They privatised profit and they socialise cost. The problems that we are confronted with today are not natural phenomena. Humans made the system that created them, and we can recreate it. But the gap that exists between that economy that exploits people on the planet and one that supports us both is collective action. As long as regular people are suspicious of and fighting each other, a handful of powerful people will get incredibly rich at all of our expense. Here's the thing. Nobody's coming to save us. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. It is time to claim your hope, to claim your power, to look at your fellow New Zealanders with curiosity and kindness, because the pathway to our freedom is intertwined. So, raise your hand. Who here is excited about the future? And are you willing to work for it? Are you willing to believe in and to work to uphold the dignity of your fellow New Zealanders, even those that you have not met, those who are not born yet? Solidarity does not require us to be the same. It simply requires us to see in others our shared humanity and to behave accordingly. E te whānau, together we are unstoppable. I am so honoured to introduce you all now to my wonderful co-leader, the one and only Honourable Marama Davidson. Nau mai, hoki mai Marama.
That was beautiful, Chloe. Mā te oranga o te taiao, ka ora ai te iwi, mo te takitini, kāre mo te toru anake. E te whānau, I am so grateful to be here today. I am well and getting better each day. Now, my mokopuna are my rongoā. My mokopuna, just by being the embodiment of my ancestors, are a reminder of all that we love, of all that we must protect. Over the many months of cancer treatment, one of the most profound experiences of healing was daytime nana naps with my moko babies, where I had any assortment of my 3 babies asleep and at peace with the shared vibrations of our heartbeats and gentle breathing. Getting to enjoy this has been a precious blessing. I am grateful to the wonderful healthcare professionals who have been there for me each step of the way. I am grateful to my whānau, who are my rock, and to every single person who reached out with aroha and support. To the breast cancer community, thank you for being there for all of us. To those who are going through treatment or have just heard the worst news of their lives, nunui te aroha kia koutou. I haven't spoken publicly about this before, but today I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few days before the State of the Planet speech last year. I remember standing at this exact podium, knowing I would need to step away from public life for a bit. Taking leave when my voice was needed the most was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. This job is and continues to be an enormous privilege. To be able to come back to it blows my mind. But the space to recover and put my health and whānau first was both necessary and something I am beyond grateful for. Not everyone has the support I had. I will never take that for granted, and I will always work to embed the political change we need so that everyone can put health first, like better pay and conditions for our health workers, decent income support and secure housing for all. E hara taku tū i te tū takitahi. E hara taku toa i te toa takitahi. E hara taku taumaha i te taumaha takitahi. We all depend on each other when times are rough. People want to care for each other. Manaakitanga is what makes us human. Within whānau and communities, to care and be cared for is the basis of connection. These are the values the Green Party wants to bring to politics as well. Now, being on the sidelines of politics last year was surreal. When the hikoi for Te Tiriti happened, it was during medical treatments and I needed to stay home. But seeing people come together with such vibrant unity made me so proud that I grabbed my tino flag, way bigger than this one, apologies, so I could run out to the backyard, take a photo and feel part of the movement. While the hikoi was in response to a government that continues to disregard the promises this country was founded on, it was so much more than a protest. It was the ultimate example of how to show up with our tupuna, for our mokopuna and for each other. The wairua shown at the hikoi is the best of us. As Moana Jackson said, Te Tiriti o Waitangi is about the rightness that comes from people accepting their obligations to each other. This is a profound vision on which to build a country. Aotearoa can be a place where everyone is supported to thrive and no one is left behind, especially papatūānuku. And I take inspiration from this vision not only here in Aotearoa, but globally. The world does feel like a bit of a scary place right now. I worry for the future of my 3 mokopuna and all the mokopuna to come. My heart breaks for children in Gaza, for all children growing up in war zones, for children in detention centres, and for children and their whānau throughout the world who are hungry, cold and homeless. At a time when the world needs to be coming together to solve climate change, the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced, instead we can barely come together to solve easy challenges like making sure every child has healthy kai. We can do better. Our mokopuna deserve better. Now, last year was the hottest year on record. That means that my mokopuna and all the babies of the world today will never see a normal climate. They have been born into climate change. And no matter where they are born, here in Aotearoa or far across the sea. They need us, their adults, to step up to this challenge right now. They deserve to inherit a thriving planet, not a destroyed one. Now, I want to draw this back to Te Tiriti because these things are connected. Te Tiriti is a promise that carries through the generations. Te Tiriti is an enduring guarantee of iwi and hapu sovereignty over taonga like our lakes, rivers, seas, soils and native forests. And that means protecting those living systems for our mokopuna so they too can exercise tino rangatiratanga. Te Tiriti is the best defence Aotearoa has against the plundering of our environment for the profit of the few. This is why the far right is so intent on ripping it up and pretending it doesn't matter. But that short-term exploitation only enriches the pockets of a tiny group of people while destroying nature for the rest of us. When our gorgeous conservation land is trampled for mining, when our rivers become too polluted to swim in, when we can't go down to the moana to harvest kai because there aren't enough fish left, everyone misses out. And when a tiny group of oil executives are more interested in a growing balance sheet than a stable climate, every single child in the world misses out. Our mokopuna deserve better. At the heart of the political change we seek is manaakitanga, collective caring for people and planet. And crucially, the humility to understand that common human experiences are much more important than any flash job title or made-up markers of status. A serious illness throws that into sharp relief. Because what matters most when things are tough is our care for one another. I know that people are doing the best they can with what they have. But the dominating economic system means that wealth and power are not shared equally. These inequities further divide communities when instead we need to come together. By making sure everyone gets the care they need, we can ensure nobody is left behind to fall through the cracks. Care and justice for all people is what binds us together and helps us build a future where all of us thrive. This vision will be at the centre of our green budget. This is what our politics should reflect. A politics of care, a hunger for doing what is just. This is the legacy of our late and great friend, Green MP Whaanano Efeso Collins, whose 1 year anniversary of passing we have been reflecting on over the past week. Gone too soon, our friend. We miss you deeply. Efeso spent his life building bridges between the Pacific communities he loved and the rest of Aotearoa. During Efeso's maiden speech in Parliament, he shared with us his translation of a saying in Samoan. E le tu whaamaunga se tangata. No one stands alone. No one succeeds alone. And for him and the Green Party, no one suffers alone. This is manaakitanga. And this is what inspires me e te whānau. This is the hope for our mokopuna. But collective care is not part of this government's plan. They are showing us each day they stand for the few and not for the many. They are completely out of touch with the community. We have seen this in the choices to gut school lunches, to gut housing for those who need it the most, to gut our health system and put more and more pressure on our health workers, to gut benefits so that more and more children fall through the cracks and below the poverty line. For absolute shame. Our mokopuna deserve better. We can deliver better by channeling community power and finally putting people and planet ahead of profit. This country can afford to feed our tamariki nutritious kai. We could choose to provide lunches in every school using fresh local kai and made by people who are connected to that school. We could choose to make sure every person in this country has a safe, warm home. Poverty is a political choice and we can choose to end it. We can do all of this by putting our values of manaakitanga at the heart of political decisions, by honouring te tiriti o Waitangi and the promises of kotahitanga and care as the foundation this country was built on. And when we do that, we will show the world what it looks like to put care for people and planet first. Together, we can build the future all our mokopuna deserve. And that mahi is why I am so grateful to be back with you all. Kia kaha tātou, ka whawhai tonu, mō te whenua, mō te taiao, mō ngā mokopuna, ake, ake, ake. Kia ora.